A father's sacrifice and a child's courage turn strangers into family, defying an alien empire with human heart and jungle cunning. Welcome to the world of science fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss new stories. Enjoy the listening. Kale's boots sank into the spongy, violet moss of Voron's jungle floor, each step a gamble against the snapping twigs betraying their position. His daughter, Lila, clung to his back, her small hands gripping his torn jacket. Her breath was shallow, hot against his neck, and her weight felt heavier with every mile. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and alien sap, a cloying sweetness that burned his lungs. Behind them, the low hum of Zerid drones pulsed through the trees, their scanners sweeping for heat signatures. Kale's heart pounded, not just from running but from the fear that he'd fail her again. The Zerid had ruled Voron for decades, their sleek, metallic spires rising from the planet's core like thorns piercing the earth. Humans were laborers, scavengers, or worse, test subjects for the Zerid's bio-experiments. Kale had been one of their engineers, tweaking their machines to strip the land faster. He'd told himself it was for Lila, to keep her fed, to keep her safe. But when the Zerid declared her unfit for their genetic quotas, he knew no amount of compliance would save her. So he ran, stealing a data chip with Zerid patrol routes and abandoning everything else. Night was falling, the jungle's bioluminescent vines casting faint blue glows across their path. Lila whimpered, her 6-year-old voice barely a whisper. "Papa, my legs hurt." Kale stopped, crouching behind a gnarled root as big as a man. He set her down gently, her thin frame shivering in the damp air. Her eyes, wide and gray, darted toward the distant drone hum. "We're okay, little star," he lied, brushing her tangled hair from her face. "Just stay quiet." The drones were closer now, their red lights flickering through the canopy. Kale's scanner, a battered device strapped to his wrist, blinked a warning, thermal detection imminent. His mind raced. The Zerid scanners could pick up a heartbeat through stone. He scanned the ground, spotting a patch of thick, black mud where a stream had pooled. It smelled of decay, but it was their only chance. "Lila, we're playing a game," he whispered, forcing a smile. "You're a seed, hiding in the earth. Can you be still for me?" She nodded, trusting him despite the fear in her eyes. Kale scooped the mud, cold and slick, and smeared it over her arms, her legs, her face. She flinched but didn't cry. He worked fast, covering every inch of her exposed skin, then lifted her into a hollowed-out tree trunk, its interior damp but shielded. "Don't move, don't breathe loud," he said, his voice cracking. He piled more mud over her, leaving only her eyes visible, like two pale moons in the dark. "I'll be right back, I promise." Kale covered himself in mud too, masking his own heat signature, and crouched low, watching the drones pass overhead. Their light swept the jungle, missing the tree by inches. His chest ached with every silent second, praying Lila could stay still. The drones moved on, their hum fading, but Kale knew they'd circle back. He needed a plan, a place to hide, but his body was failing, hunger, exhaustion, and a gash on his leg from a thorn vine slowing him down. A rustle broke his thoughts. Not a drone, but footsteps, deliberate and heavy. Kale tensed, gripping a jagged stone, his only weapon. A figure emerged from the shadows, a human, broad-shouldered, with a beard streaked with gray. His clothes were patched, his hands calloused, holding a makeshift spear carved from bone and wood. His eyes, sharp and green, locked onto Kale's. "You're loud for a fugitive," the man said, his voice low but not cruel. "And you're bleeding. They'll smell that." Kale tightened his grip on the stone. "Who are you?" he asked, voice hoarse. The man tilted his head, studying him. "Name's Torm. And you're not Zerid, so I'm not killing you yet. Your kid's in that tree, isn't she?" Kale's stomach dropped. He lunged forward, but Torm raised a hand. "Easy. I'm not turning you in. But you're not surviving out here alone. Follow me, or don't. Your call." Kale hesitated. Trust was a luxury he couldn't afford, but Lila's fever was worsening, and the drones would return. He glanced at the tree where she hid, her eyes peeking out, watching. "Okay," he said finally. "But if you hurt her, I'll end you." Torm snorted, almost amused. "Fair enough." Kale retrieved Lila, wiping the mud from her face as she coughed weakly. Torm led them through the jungle, moving with a predator's ease, avoiding roots and vines Kale hadn't even noticed. They reached a clearing where the ground dipped into a hidden ravine, camouflaged by woven vines and moss. Torm pushed aside a curtain of leaves, revealing a narrow tunnel. "In here," he said. Kale carried Lila inside, the air growing cooler, smelling of earth and metal. The tunnel opened into a camp, shelves of scavenged tech, a fire pit glowing with chemical coals, and a small stream diverted from an underground spring. Torm gestured to a pile of blankets. "Put her there. She needs warmth." Kale laid Lila down, her small body curling into the fabric. Torm handed him a metal flask. "Water. Clean. Drink slow." Kale took it, sipping cautiously, then gave some to Lila. Her lips cracked as she drank, but her eyes brightened slightly. "Why help us?" Kale asked, watching Torm stoke the fire. The man shrugged, his spear leaning against the wall. "Seen too many die out here. Kids especially. Doesn't sit right." He paused, glancing at Lila. "She's got a spark. Reminds me of someone I lost." Kale didn't press. He knew the weight of those words. Instead, he sat beside Lila, her hand in his, feeling the first flicker of safety in days. The camp was quiet, save for the drip of water and the distant jungle hum. Torm worked silently, sharpening a blade, his movements precise. Kale's mind churned. Could he trust this stranger? Could they stay hidden? The Zerid wouldn't stop hunting, not with the data chip in his pocket. But for now, Lila was safe, her breathing steady. Kale looked at Torm, then at the camp's clever design, blending nature and tech. Maybe, just maybe, they could survive. The air in Torm's camp was cool and heavy with the scent of damp stone and recycled water, a stark contrast to the humid jungle outside. Kale sat on a worn crate, watching Lila sleep under a patchwork blanket Torm had draped over her. Her small chest rose and fell steadily, the fever that had burned through her for days finally easing. The camp, carved into the rock of a hidden ravine, felt like a secret the planet Vorin had kept from the Zerid regime. Shelves of scavenged tech wires, cracked data pads, and jury-rigged solar cells lined the walls, blending with roots that snaked through the ceiling. A small fire pit glowed with chemical coals, casting flickering shadows across the space. Torm moved quietly, sorting through a pile of metal scraps, his hands steady despite the scars crisscrossing his knuckles. Kale's leg throbbed where the thorned vine had cut him, but he ignored it, his eyes fixed on Lila. The data chip in his pocket felt heavier than ever, its stolen Zerid patrol routes a ticking clock. He didn't know how long they could stay here before the drones recalibrated and swept the jungle again. Torm hadn't asked about the chip or why the Zerid were hunting them, but Kale sensed the man knew more than he let on. Trust was still a fragile thing, like a seedling pushing through cracked soil. Torm broke the silence, his voice low. "She's tougher than she looks," he said, nodding toward Lila. "Most kids would have cried themselves out by now." Kale managed a small smile, brushing a strand of Lila's hair from her face. "She's had to be," he said. "Her mother, she taught her to be strong before she was gone." He didn't elaborate, and Torm didn't push. Instead, the older man tossed him a small metal tin. "Salve for that leg. Smells bad, works good. Made it from tree sap and moss." Kale opened the tin, wincing at the sharp, earthy scent. He smeared the sticky paste over his wound, feeling a cool sting that dulled the pain. "You've been out here a while," Kale said, glancing at the camp's clever setup, pipes diverting water from an underground stream, solar cells rigged to catch the jungle's faint light. "How'd you build all this?" Torm shrugged, wiping his hands on a rag. "Wasn't always alone. Had a crew once, other runaways. We learned the jungle, used what it gave us. Zerid don't care about the land, just what they can take from it. Makes it easy to hide if you know where to look." Lila stirred, her eyes fluttering open. She sat up slowly, clutching the blanket. "Papa," she whispered, then noticed Torm. Her gaze darted to the fire pit, curious. "Is that magic?" she asked, pointing at the glowing coals. Torm chuckled, a rough sound that softened his face. Not magic, kid. Just chemistry. Want to see? Lila nodded, sliding off the crate to sit closer. Torm showed her a small vial of powder, sprinkling it into the fire. It flared green for a moment, making Lila gasp. Cale watched, his chest tightening. It was the first time she'd smiled in weeks. Over the next few days, the camp became a fragile sanctuary. Torm taught Lila small tasks: how to check the water filter's pressure, how to weave vines into nets for catching debris. She followed him like a shadow, her questions endless. Why do the trees glow? Do they talk to each other? Can I eat the purple berries? Torm answered patiently, his gruff voice softening each time. Cale helped where he could, repairing a flickering light panel with his engineering skills, but guilt gnawed at him. He hadn't told Torm about his past, how he'd worked for the Zared, designing their soil processors, helping them strip Voran's resources. Every time he looked at Lila, he saw the cost of his choices. One evening, as the jungle's bioluminescent glow pulsed through the ravine, Torm led Cale to a hidden lookout, a ledge overlooking the Zared outpost in the distance. Its spires loomed, their lights cutting through the mist. They're stepping up patrols, Torm said, pointing to a cluster of drones hovering near the jungle's edge. Whatever you did, they want you bad. Cale's hand instinctively went to the chip in his pocket. I took something they need, he admitted. Patrol routes, security codes. Enough to get us off-world if we can reach a shuttle. Torm's eyes narrowed, but he didn't ask for details. Off-world's a dream for most, he said. Zared locked down every port. You'd need a miracle or a distraction. He paused, scratching his beard. I've been watching that outpost for years. Weak spots in their grid, places their scanners miss. Been planning to hit it, mess up their systems. Never had a reason to risk it till now. Cale looked at him, surprised. You'd do that for us? Torm snorted. Not just for you. For everyone they've crushed. But yeah, your kid's a good reason. The next morning, Torm showed Cale the jungle's secrets. He pointed out plants that could mask scents, vines strong enough to rig traps, and a type of moss that absorbed sound. Cale marveled at the man's knowledge, pieced together from years of survival. The jungle's alive, Torm said, crushing a leaf to release its sharp scent. It's not your friend, but it's not your enemy either. Respect it, and it'll hide you. Cale nodded, memorizing every detail. He'd spent years bending nature to the Zared's will, now, he was learning to listen to it. Lila, meanwhile, grew bolder. She helped Torm sort through a pile of salvaged tech, her small hands steady as she separated wires. Look, Papa, she called, holding up a cracked circuit board. Torm says it's like a puzzle. Cale smiled, but his heart ached. She deserved a childhood, not this life of hiding. He caught Torm watching him, a knowing look in his eyes. You're carrying something heavy, Torm said later, as they sat by the fire. Not just that chip. Cale stared at the flames. I worked for them, he said finally. Built their machines. Thought I was protecting her. But I was just part of it. Torm didn't flinch. We've all got stains, he said. I was in their labor camps. Broke out, but left others behind. You think that doesn't eat at me? He leaned forward, his voice firm. What matters is what you do now. For her. Cale nodded, the weight in his chest shifting, not gone but lighter. He looked at Lila, now asleep with a piece of vine clutched in her hand, and felt a spark of resolve. He'd make it right, for her. The drones returned that night, their hum louder, closer. Cale woke to Torm's hand on his shoulder. They're scanning the ravine, Torm whispered. We need to move deeper. He led them through a hidden tunnel, narrower and colder, to a smaller chamber lined with glowing moss. Lila clung to Cale, her eyes wide but quiet. Torm rigged a net of vines across the entrance, blending it with the jungle's natural cover. This'll buy us time, he said. But we need a plan. That outpost is our only shot. Cale pulled out the data chip, its surface scratched but intact. This has their patrol schedules, he said. If we can get to their comms tower, I can disrupt their drone network. Give us a window to move. Torm studied him, then nodded. You're not just an engineer, are you? Kale didn't answer, but the question hung between them. He wasn't just running anymore, he was fighting back. As they settled into the new chamber, Lila tugged at Torm's sleeve. Can you make the fire green again? She asked. Torm smiled, sprinkling the powder into the coals. The green flare lit her face, and for a moment, the fear was gone. Kale watched them, the man and his daughter, and felt something new, a sense of family, fragile but growing, rooted in this strange, wild place. The jungle outside hummed, alive and waiting, and Kale knew they'd need every bit of its strength to survive what came next. The jungle's pulse was louder in the deeper chamber, where glowing moss clung to the walls like stars trapped in stone. Kale sat cross-legged, the stolen data chip in his palm, its faint glow reflecting in his tired eyes. Lila slept nearby, curled under Torm's blanket, her soft snores blending with the drip of water from a crack in the ceiling. The air smelled of earth and metal, a mix of Voran's wild heart and Torm's scavenged tech. Torm crouched by a makeshift table, sketching a map of the Zared outpost on a piece of flattened bark. His spear rested against the wall, its bone tip gleaming in the dim light. The drones hadn't found them yet, but their hum echoed faintly through the ravine, a reminder that time was running out. Torm tapped the bark, pointing to a cluster of lines. This is the outpost's comms tower, he said, his voice low but steady. Knock it out, and their drones go blind for a day, maybe two. Enough time to slip through their patrols. Kale nodded, studying the map. His years working for the Zared gave him an edge, he knew their systems, their weak points. But the thought of facing them again twisted his stomach. He'd built those towers, wired their circuits to drain Voran's resources faster. Now, he'd use that knowledge against them. I can overload the tower's grid, Kale said, running a finger over the chip. The codes here will get me past their locks. But we'll need a distraction to get close. Torm grunted, his eyes narrowing. Got ideas for that. The jungle's got plenty to work with if you know how to ask. He glanced at Lila, who stirred but didn't wake. She's why we're doing this, right? So she doesn't have to hide forever. Kale's throat tightened. Yeah, he said. She deserves better than this. Lila woke soon after, her gray eyes bright despite the shadows under them. She crawled over to Torm, peering at his map. What's that? She asked, pointing to a squiggly line. Torm smiled, a rare softness in his face. That's a river, kid. Runs right under their outpost. Hides noise, messes with their scanners. Lila tilted her head, curious. Can we swim in it? Torm chuckled. Not unless you like glowing fish nibbling your toes. She giggled, the sound lightening the heavy air. That afternoon, Lila wandered the chamber, her small hands brushing the glowing moss. Kale watched her, his heart aching. She was so curious, so alive, despite everything. He remembered her mother, Mara, who'd loved Voran's wild beauty before the Zared took her for their experiments. Lila had her spirit, her need to touch and explore. As she poked at a cluster of plants growing in a crack, she gasped. Papa, look! She held up a small, spiky pod, its surface pulsing with faint light. It hums. Kale knelt beside her, frowning. The pod vibrated slightly, like a heartbeat. Torm joined them, his eyes widening. That's a signal vine pod. Rare. Messes with tech when it blooms. Kale's mind raced. Messes with tech how? Torm crushed a pod gently, releasing a faint static buzz. Scrambles short-range signals. X-Redder's Zared scanners can't lock onto anything when these are active. Kale's breath caught. Could it block their drones? Torm nodded. If you get enough of them, yeah. But they don't grow in clusters. Finding one's a miracle. Lila clutched the pod, her eyes wide. I can find more. I saw them by the stream. Kale exchanged a look with Torm. This could change everything. They spent the day searching the jungle near the ravine, Lila leading the way with uncanny instinct. She pointed out the spiky pods hidden among roots and vines, her excitement growing with each find. This one's singing, she said, holding up another. Kale marveled at her. How could a child see what he'd missed? Torm showed her how to tie the pods into small bundles, explaining how to crush them to release their signal jamming pulse. Kale felt a spark of hope, the first in months. With these pods, they might not need a massive distraction, just enough chaos to slip through. That night, as they sorted the pods in the chamber, Torm shared his plan. We hit the outpost at dawn. The river's fog will hide us. Kale, you handle the tower. I'll set traps with the pods. Lila, you stay here, safe. Lila crossed her arms. I want to help. I found the pods. Kale's heart sank. It's too dangerous, little star. But Lila's eyes were fierce. I'm not scared. I can be quiet like a seed. Torm looked at Kale, raising an eyebrow. She's got more guts than most. We'll keep her close, but safe. Kale nodded reluctantly, trusting Torm's instincts. As they prepared, a faint groan echoed through the tunnel. Torm froze, grabbing his spear. Kale pulled Lila behind him, his stone weapon in hand. Torm crept to the entrance, peering through the vine net. Stay here, he whispered, slipping out. Minutes later, he returned, dragging a figure, a Zerid scout, its sleek, insect-like armor cracked, one of its forearms limp. Its black eyes flickered weakly, its breathing labored. Lila gasped, hiding behind Kale. Is it bad? She whispered. Torm knelt beside the scout, checking its wounds. It's hurt, not dead. Must have crashed a drone. Kale's blood ran cold. The Zerid were merciless, but this one was alone, bleeding. What do we do? He asked. Torm's face was hard. We can't let it report us. But killing it doesn't feel right. Kale stared at the creature, its thin limbs twitching. He'd seen Zerid execute humans without hesitation, but this one wasn't fighting. Can we tie it up? Kale asked. Torm nodded, pulling vines from the wall. Good call. We'll hide it deeper in the jungle. Lila peeked out, her voice small. Why didn't it hurt us? Torm paused, binding the scout's arms. Not all Zerid are the same. Some follow orders, some don't. This one might have been running, too. Kale's mind spun. He'd never considered that a Zerid could be anything but a monster. As Torm dragged the scout away, Kale sat with Lila, explaining softly. Sometimes, even enemies are just trying to survive, like us. She nodded, clutching a pod. Like us, she echoed. When Torm returned, he looked at Kale with new respect. You didn't hesitate back there. Most would have killed it. Kale shrugged, uneasy. I've seen enough death. Torm nodded, sitting beside him. You're not what I expected. Thought you were just a city tech. Kale's jaw tightened. I was. Worked for them. Built their machines. Thought it'd keep Lila safe. Torm's eyes softened. We all make mistakes. You're here now, fighting for her. That's what counts. Lila fell asleep in Kale's lap, the pod still in her hand. Torm handed Kale a sharpened stick. You'll need this tomorrow. It's not much, but it's quiet. Kale took it, feeling its weight. The jungle outside hummed, alive with secrets. For the first time, Kale felt like they weren't just running, they were fighting back, together. The signal vine pods glowed faintly on the table, Lila's discovery giving them a chance. As the chamber's light dimmed, Kale looked at Torm, then at Lila, and felt the roots of something stronger than survival taking hold, hope. The jungle was alive with the roar of an approaching storm, its winds rattling the bioluminescent vines like a chorus of restless spirits. Kale crouched at the edge of the ravine, the stolen data chip heavy in his pocket, its codes their only hope to cripple the Zerid outpost. Lila huddled beside him, clutching a bundle of signal vine pods, her small face set with determination. Torm led the way, his spear strapped to his back, moving through the undergrowth with the ease of someone who'd made the jungle his home. The air smelled of wet earth and ozone, the storm's charge prickling their skin. Above, the sky churned with gray clouds, hiding the drones but not their distant hum. Torm's plan was simple but dangerous: use the storm's cover to reach the outpost's comms tower, where Kale would upload a virus from the chip to scramble the Zerid's drone network. Torm and Lila would set traps with the signal vine pods to disrupt scanners, buying Kale time. The river, swollen from the rain, would mask their approach, its currents glowing faintly with phosphorescent algae. Kale's heart pounded as he looked at Lila. "Stay close to Torm," he whispered, brushing a damp strand of hair from her eyes. "Be our seed, quiet and strong." She nodded, her gray eyes fierce. "I can do it, Papa." They moved through the jungle, the storm's roar drowning out their steps. Torm had woven nets of vines to carry the pods, which Lila cradled like treasures. Kale carried a salvaged toolkit, its weight familiar from his days wiring Zerid machines. The outpost loomed ahead, its spires cutting through the mist, their lights flickering in the storm's interference. Torm pointed to a drainage grate near the riverbank, barely visible under a tangle of roots. "That's our way in," he said. "River runs under it. Stay low." Kale lifted the grate, its rusted hinges groaning. The tunnel below was narrow, its walls slick with algae and smelling of decayed metal. Lila hesitated, then squeezed Kale's hand. "Like hiding in the tree," she whispered, and slipped inside. Torm followed, pulling the grate shut behind them. The tunnel amplified the river's rush, its glow casting eerie patterns on their faces. Kale's stomach twisted. He'd built tunnels like this for the Zerid, designed to drain Voron's rivers for their mines. Now, he was using one to fight back. They emerged in a maintenance bay, its walls lined with humming conduits. The comms tower was close, its base visible through a cracked window. Torm handed Lila a bundle of pods. "Crush these when I signal," he said. "Stay behind that crate." She nodded, crouching low, her small hands steady. Kale felt a pang of pride and fear. She was so brave, too brave for a child. Torm led him to a side passage, where they rigged vines laced with pods across the path. "When these break, the scanners will go haywire," Torm said. "Move fast." Kale reached the tower's access panel, his fingers trembling as he connected the chip to the port. The codes unlocked the system, screens flickering with Zerid data streams. He uploaded the virus, a program he'd written in secret years ago to disrupt their networks. Lines of code scrolled past, and Kale's breath caught. He hadn't touched a system like this since he'd fled. Memories flooded back, long nights in Zerid labs, justifying his work to keep Lila safe, knowing he was betraying his own kind. The virus took hold, and the tower's lights flickered, a sign the drone network was faltering. Outside, Torm signaled Lila. She crushed the pods, their static buzz filling the air. Alarms blared, but the scanners sputtered, unable to lock onto them. Torm set off more traps, the pod's pulses scrambling Zerid sensors. Kale worked faster, rerouting power to overload the tower's grid. But as he typed, a voice cut through the chaos. A Zerid guard, its insect-like form looming in the doorway. "Traitor," it hissed, recognizing Kale's face from old records. Kale froze, his past crashing into the present. Torm lunged, tackling the guard with his spear. The Zerid's claws slashed, cutting Torm's arm, but he held firm, pinning it down. "Finish it, Kale," he shouted. Kale's hands shook, but he typed the final command, and the tower's system sparked, shutting down. The drones outside wobbled, their lights dimming as they lost connection. But the guard's words echoed in Kale's mind: "Traitor." Torm dragged the stunned Zerid into the shadows, binding it with vines. "Move," he barked, blood dripping from his arm. They fled back to the tunnel, Lila running ahead, her pods spent. But as they reached the riverbank, Torm grabbed Kale's shoulder, his eyes hard. "Traitor, it called you." "What's that about?" Kale's chest tightened. He owed Torm the truth. "I worked for them," he said, voice low. "Built their systems, their minds. Thought it'd protect Lila. I was wrong." Torm's jaw clenched, his hand tightening on his spear. "You helped them destroy this planet." Kale nodded, shame burning his throat. "I'm trying to fix it now." Lila tugged Torm's sleeve, her voice small. "Papa's good. He saved me." Torm's gaze softened, but the tension lingered. "We'll talk later," he said. "Let's get out." The storm raged harder, rain lashing their faces as they ran through the jungle. The outpost's alarms faded, the drones grounded by the virus and pods. They reached the ravine, collapsing in the chamber's safety. Lila hugged Kale, her wet hair sticking to his chest. "You did it, Papa," she whispered. He held her tight, guilt and relief warring inside him. Torm bandaged his arm, his silence heavy. Kale sat across from him, the fire's glow highlighting the strain between them. "I should have told you," Kale said. "I didn't know how." Torm snorted, but his voice was softer. "You're not the only one with a past. I left people in those camps. Couldn't save them." He looked at Lila, asleep again. "She's why I didn't walk away from you. She's why I'm still here." Kale nodded, the weight of Torm's words settling like soil over roots. Lila stirred, clutching a broken pod. "It sang for us," she murmured, half asleep. Torm smiled faintly. "Yeah, kid. It did." He turned to Kale. "The drones are down, but the Zerid will send ground patrols. We've got a day, maybe two, to reach the resistance." Kale's eyes widened. "Resistance?" Torm nodded. "Humans, hiding in the deep jungle. They've got a shuttle, old but working. Your chip might get us there." Kale felt a spark of hope, fragile but real. They weren't just surviving now, they were fighting for freedom. As the storm quieted, the jungle's glow returned, casting light through the chamber. Kale looked at Torm, then Lila, and saw more than a hiding place. This was a family, forged in mud and trust, stronger than the Zerid's spires. The fight wasn't over, but for the first time, Kale believed they could win not just for Lila, but for everyone Voran had broken. The jungle woke slowly, its bioluminescent vines pulsing faintly as dawn's light filtered through the canopy. Kale packed their meager supplies, salvage tech, a flask of water, a bundle of signal vine pods, his hands steady despite the ache in his bones. Lila sat nearby, braiding a vine into a small crown, her gray eyes bright with a hope Kale hadn't seen in months. Torm stood at the chamber's entrance, his spear in hand, scanning the ravine for Zerid patrols. The air smelled of rain-soaked earth and blooming flowers, a fragile sweetness after the storm's chaos. The outpost's comms tower was silent, its drones grounded by Kale's virus, but the Zerid would come soon, their ground forces tracking the sabotage. Torm's revelation about the human resistance, a hidden network with a shuttle to escape Voran, had lit a fire in Kale. The data chip in his pocket, now holding not just patrol routes but outpost schematics, could be their ticket to freedom. But the journey to the Resistance's camp was perilous, through dense jungle and past Zerid checkpoints. Kale glanced at Lila, her vine crown lopsided but proud. "Ready, little star?" he asked. She nodded, slipping the crown onto her head. "For the adventure," she said, mimicking Torm's gruff tone. Torm chuckled, ruffling her hair. "That's the spirit, kid." They moved out, Torm leading through paths only he could see, trails marked by bent twigs, moss patterns, and the jungle's subtle cues. Kale carried Lila when her legs tired, her weight a reminder of why he fought. The jungle was both ally and obstacle, its roots tripping them, its glow hiding them from distant scanners. Torm showed Kale how to crush signal vine pods sparingly, their static pulses masking their trail. "The jungle gives, but it takes two," Torm said, cutting through a thorned vine. "Respect it, and we'll make it." By midday, they reached a ridge overlooking a Zerid checkpoint, a metal gate flanked by two guards, their insect-like forms glinting in the sun. Kale's stomach churned. He knew those gates had wired their sensors for the Zerid years ago. "We can't fight through," he whispered. Torm nodded, scanning the area. "River's close. We'll go under." Lila tugged Kale's sleeve. "I can help," she said, holding a pod. "Make it sing." Kale hesitated, then nodded. Her courage was their strength. They crept to the riverbank, its water glowing with algae. Torm rigged a vine net to hold their gear above the current, and they waded in, the cold biting their skin. Lila crushed a pod, its buzz scrambling the checkpoint's scanners long enough for them to slip under the gate through a submerged tunnel. Kale's lungs burned as he held Lila close, emerging in a muddy alcove. Torm pulled them out, his arms still scarred from the outpost fight. "Good work, kid," he told Lila, who beamed despite her chattering teeth. The resistance camp was deeper in the jungle, hidden in a crater overgrown with vines. As they approached, a figure emerged, a woman with cropped hair and a patched jacket, holding a scavenged rifle. "Name yourselves," she called. Torm stepped forward. "Torm, with allies. We hit the outpost. Got intel." The woman's eyes widened. "You're the one who grounded the drones?" She lowered her weapon. "I'm Vera. Come." The camp was alive with quiet purpose, humans repairing tech, tending crops, training with makeshift weapons. A battered shuttle sat in the crater's center, its hull scarred but intact. Vera led them to a tent where a man named Jor, the resistance leader, studied a cracked data pad. Kale handed over the chip, explaining its contents. "Patrol routes, outpost layouts, security codes," he said. "Enough to get you off-world." Jor's eyes lit up. This could save hundreds. But as Kale spoke, a young man in the tent stared at him, his face hardening. "I know you," he said. "You worked for the Zared. Built their mines. My brother died in one." The tent went silent, eyes turning to Kale. His heart sank. "I did," he admitted. "I thought I was protecting my daughter. I was wrong." Lila grabbed his hand, her voice small but fierce. "Papa's good now. He's saving us." Torm stepped forward, his presence commanding. "He risked everything to hit that outpost. Judge him by that." Jor raised a hand, calming the tension. "We've all got pasts. What matters is now. This chip changes everything." He turned to Kale. "You're welcome here, but we leave at dawn. The Zared will hunt us." Kale nodded, relief mixing with shame. Vera showed them to a small shelter, where Lila fell asleep on a mat, still clutching her vine crown. Torm sat outside, sharpening his spear. "You did right, telling them," he said. Kale sighed. "Doesn't erase what I did." Torm shrugged. "Nothing does. But you're giving her a future. That's enough." That night, Kale couldn't sleep. He wandered the camp, watching families share food, children play despite the danger. He found Lila by a small garden, planting a signal vine pod in the soil. "For the jungle," she said. "So it remembers us." Kale knelt beside her, tears in his eyes. "It will, little star." The pod's faint pulse felt like a promise, a piece of Vorin they'd carry forward. At dawn, the camp buzzed with preparations. The shuttle's engines hummed, ready for a risky launch. But Torm approached Kale, his face solemn. "I'm not going," he said. "Someone's gotta stay, help others still trapped. This jungle's my fight." Kale's chest tightened. "You're family now," he said. Torm smiled, a rare warmth in his eyes. "You and Lila are why I kept going. Take her somewhere safe." He handed Kale his spear. "For her." Lila hugged Torm, tears streaming down her face. "You'll come find us, right?" Torm knelt, placing her vine crown back on her head. "Count on it, kid." As the shuttle loaded, Kale shared a final look with Torm, a silent vow to honor his sacrifice. The engines roared, and the jungle fell away, Vorin's glow fading below. Lila pressed her face to the window, whispering, "Thank you, jungle." In the stars, Kale held Lila close, the spear beside them. The resistance would find a new world, but Kale knew their fight wasn't over. The Zared would hunt, but so would hope, rooted in the mud and trust of a family forged in the wild. Lila's pod, left in Vorin's soil, would bloom, a signal of defiance for those who followed.